Alright, hi guys. We are back with a quick video update. I figured I'd just document this while it's occurring. I have 3 insulated metal plate antennas now acting as energy collectors, as well as a heavy earth connection into the system. You need a heavy earth connection. So what's occurring, I had to switch back out to the BC547C transistor, and this monitors our current consumption, this meter. This shows our voltage from our 9-volt battery. We have a 9-volt battery driving a very efficient Joule thief circuit. This research is trying to tread into the same waters of the Moray valve energy machine. Me and some online people are really trying to figure it out and crack the code to it. Why this is important is we have no detectable power consumption within the system, yet we have a wireless power output, as you can see. I'm going to try and even get this to a better spot. So we have a very weak wireless power output with no detectable input. And this breakthrough was made last night. I noticed the wireless power will be made manifest wherever wires seem to cross each other or oppose each other. So anywhere there's oppositely charged current running through the system and the wires cross each other, it'll be giving off wireless power extremely efficiently. So as you see, the positive and negative are crossing here. We have a wireless power output with no detectable input. And for those who doubt this system is doing it, I will disconnect the transistor. There will be no power output displayed here because the transistor is disconnected. And again, I will reconnect our driving transistor, which is a BC547C. No detectable current in the system, yet we have wireless power output. And this is a really important video to watch. I'll try and keep it quick. I'm going to sum up a lot of concepts here very quick. That is the culmination of all the research and what we're leading up to. So again, I disconnected the driving transistor. Wireless power is out. Connect the transistor up again. Wireless power is back at no detectable input. I'll even take my little fancy meter here, and it can detect the fact that the plate antenna is hot with power. So there's a very high dielectric field here on the insulated plate antenna. So why this is important is it all ties into Moray's work. Basically what we discovered and what we theorized happened is Thomas Henry Moray with his Moray valve energy machine. He had a very special transistor tube he developed by himself, and it was a self-switching transistor tube, or it was so sensitive it was nearly self-switching, and he stimulated the tube into activation from an antenna and a heavy earth connection. Now here's where it gets interesting. We believe, by using retroductive research and reasoning, we believe he had an electret style antenna, and that's electret, an electret type of antenna. And his electret antenna acted as a giant net to draw in charge to it from the atmosphere. So it's believed he would have he created an electret antenna, or he happened to just get an antenna with electret properties, maybe from the insulator that it was made from, just happened to have electret properties. And it would basically act like a giant attractor and attract in charge from the atmosphere to stimulate his tubes into switching. And then he just kept on duplicating his circuit for a higher power output. That's the theory. We're kind of observing that effect. Our battery voltage never drops. And why this is so important is we're really trying to master the framework here with the device before we scale it up. Because I can scale this up easily at any point I want. But if I don't have the fundamental framework of the device down first, with it being as hyper efficient as possible, it won't be that much of a breakthrough. I want the system to be as highly efficient as possible, as nearly self-switching and self-activating as possible before I scale it up. And the key principles to that self-switching, the heart of it lies in your sensitive transistor, which is a BC547C. The lower that voltage saturation is, the better, along with the higher HFE. Insulated metal plates help a lot. Our meter can't even detect the current that's coming off that the device is consuming. So as you see, we have wireless power, no detectable current consumption. Later on in the video, I will turn the potentiometer up so we can see that the system does consume power when not tuned properly. So to sum it up, I'm trying to replicate concepts of the Moray valve using retroduction, and a group of online researchers are really trying to crack it. And once we get the system, we keep trying to aim for better efficiency. Once we get it even more efficient, we'll then scale it up and duplicate the power outputs, put it in parallel or series or a combination of both, and we can get the power up as high as we want to do whatever we want while keeping our input as low as possible. And the trigger is occurring from the insulated plate antenna and the earth connection. It's theorized we're having a form of non-Hertzian power induction into the atmosphere with the plate antenna and the earth connection. So I'm trying to keep this video short and quick, explain the principles to you. I simplified my feedback coil. This is the wireless feedback coil. For some reason, this one's working the best without the capacitors in parallel. Not sure why that is, but here's the old feedback coil. Here's the new feedback coil. The DC output, which I'm using 1N34A germanium diodes as a rectifier, coming off the feedback coil. And that power output goes back into the driving battery to get us to consume either virtually no power or undetectable levels of power. And to boost the power output of a resonant receiver coil, you can connect an insulated metal plate antenna. I use all my antenna connections as yellow wires. All my earth connections are green wires. So I'm keeping to that color code schematic for simplicity. Any yellow connection is an antenna connection. Any green connection is an earth connection. And red and black is obviously DC, plus and minus. So that will be the new color code moving forward. Keep things simple. And as we see, we have small wireless power output with no detectable input. That very fact alone should be impossible, but it is not impossible because it's theorized we are having a triggered form of non-Hertzian induction into the upper atmosphere. And our insulated metal plate antenna is helping greatly with that. And to enhance it further, we will have to make the insulated metal plate antenna, we have to give it electret properties. So I'm going to have to put a form of insulation over it, give it a positive high voltage charge as it cools, and the system will act like an electret to the ionosphere and draw in tons of the opposite charge, just like a magnet has a field around it, ab extra to the magnet itself. So that's the science behind it. That's explaining it. Nothing magic about it, nothing spooky, nothing mystical. Just pure, raw electrical engineering trying to be deduced and figured out with retroduction. The end stage generator will probably be on a mobile cart with multiple plate antennas when it's perfected. And the antennas will have electret properties that I'll have to make or buy. And yeah, it will be a self-activating system that will give off wireless power. And the self-activation occurs from three different things. Our highly efficient switching transistor. It occurs from the non-Hertzian form of induction into the atmosphere, and our heavy earth connection. which is receiving impulse currents from the Earth. So I hope that explains it. I'm trying to sum up the principles here, because the Moray valve, which had tons of witnesses and affidavits signed, said the device was dead simple, had nothing but multiple arrays of stacked switching tubes, and yet the system gave out tremendous amounts of power from the way he combined his harvesting circuitry. So it's believed that that's what he did. I'm going to try and keep this video under 15 minutes. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Had to show you guys this breakthrough. Forgive my voice. I have horrific allergies. I can hardly ever breathe out of my nose. So yeah, again, it's just a Joule thief circuit constructed on an 8-inch long ferrite rod. The L1 and L2 both take up 6.5 inches, centered cleanly on the rod. The L1 coil is 28 gauge. The L2 coil is 16 gauge. Again, L1 coil, 16 gauge. The L1 coil, which is wound first, is 28 gauge. It's thinner wire. You can see it right here. The L2 coil is 16 gauge and wound on the outside. It's thicker wire. And they're wound in a bucking configuration, wound right on top of each other. The coil takes up 6.5 inches of space on an 8-inch rod. A 200 millimeter by 10 millimeter nickel zinc ferrite rod will also work. The receiver coil, just another two coils, 16 gauge, stranded wire, wrapped 6.5 inches long. So that's what we're working with. It's a dead simple Joule thief circuit, heavily earth grounded. The hot wire is earth grounded. I'll post an updated schematic on my YouTube community post. So I figured I'd demonstrate that, explain the concepts to you, let you know what we're working towards, our goal, our mission statement, and more wireless power will be present near loops of wire. Hopefully you can see that. Any loops of wire will manifest the wireless power. Again, we have no power consumption. Our voltage on our source is locked at 9.55. See wireless power here. This is our feedback coil. This is an additional super receiver coil I built. If you put it in the loop of wire, it'll output power, and you can boost that power output even further by connecting an insulated metal plate antenna to the DC output here. That's how you boost the power. We're introducing extreme nonlinearity into the system with our transistor, our sensitive germanium diodes, and our insulated metal plate antenna. We are forming a very sensitive, nearly self-triggering system that is non-Hertzian inducting into the atmosphere for energy harvesting. So that fully explains it, because the Earth is a poor conductor of electricity, but a good inductor of electricity, as per Eric Dollard's notes. Now the question arises, what's the most efficient way to scale it up? Because this size plate antenna works the best. They are a bit big, but I can keep getting more of them. So we have 3 antennas total. That one is half the size. So we have 3 antennas total, plus a heavy earth connection, contributing to the near self-activation. The battery is just acting as a trigger to set the system into oscillation. And once that induction forms with the ionosphere or the atmosphere, that non-Hertzian induction, we have wireless power output with no input. The meter can't even detect the power we're consuming while we have wireless power output. And if I get too close to the system in certain spots or detune it, you will actually detect small amounts of power consumption. Yeah, right there. If I tune it all the way up, it will consume power. Alright, I'm good, so I have to speak to some people real quick. We're back. I detuned it. It's consuming 5.6 milliamps now. Wireless power is more enhanced, but now we are consuming power. For those that don't believe it, I'll disconnect the transistor we're out. We have no power. And I don't ever like cutting my videos, but I said a lot, made a lot of points, had to show what was going on. So feel free to replicate it, build it, as hundreds of other people have. I'll try and tune it again to no power consumption, which might be tricky. At least while holding the camera, it might be tricky. So I'm tuning the potentiometer to the point where it's nearly no power consumption. Still have wireless output. Trying to tune it a little bit lower. Hopefully we can hit it. And we might have hit it. I think we hit it. No power consumption. Yup, we did it. So this one's a little easier to tune with the 3-plate antennas. We have no forms of detectable power consumption now. We have tuned it. Our voltage dropped by 0.1 because we consumed a little bit of power when I detuned it and made it go to 5 milliamps power draw. The question is, will we hit 9.55 volts DC again? Probably. And being near that coil, too close to it, will cause the system to draw power. But there doesn't seem to be a limit on the amount of wireless power you can draw from the system if you're at certain special points within it. So, figured I'd show that, display that, let you all see everything with it. And I might have to tune it even further because we have a small power draw. Last time we had no power draw. So see, we have no power draw. We have wireless power output near this loop of wire. Yet we have no power draw. So it all depends where you try and tap into the circuit. There's hot spots where the power will accumulate, almost like resonant nodes. So I know I said a lot real quick in this video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Very close to scaling it up once the efficiency effects are mastered. And I know I have it as efficient as I can get. Then I'll scale it up. And once it's scaled up and I scale the power output up, I'll use it to either charge supercapacitors or batteries, and we're in business. We have a much more improved system, and then I'll incorporate that design into the new generation of generator boards. So again, thank you everyone. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and join our Patreon. Want to see a look under the desk? That's how it looks. We just have those 3-plate antennas. And again, I showed you the system operating, giving off wireless power. I disconnect the driving transistor. The wireless power goes out. Reconnect the driving transistor. The wireless power comes on. So, I think I summed it up, explained everything, and we're consuming a little bit of power now because I didn't quite fine-tune it enough. And I'm also a little too close to that coil, and for some reason being near that coil causes us to draw a power consumption. Something else of interest we discovered in our research is if you have enough negative resistance components in your circuit will then act as a generator instead of a consumer of power. And there's a reason negative resistant components, special ones, are heavily restricted in the civilian market. It's really that dead simple. Once you have enough negative resistance in a circuit, your circuit overcomes all positive resistance and acts as a generator of power instead of a consumer of power. So I figured this important video should be released out there. Gonna try and keep it under 20 minutes. And yeah, thank you everybody. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, you know. And there it is. Wireless power output. No input. That very fact alone should be impossible, but it's theorized. We are experiencing a form of non-Hertzian induction into the upper atmosphere with our insulated plate antenna. And as you see, this plate is very hot. It can be detected, and the intensity of it changes. So I'm going to experiment with putting this higher up and creating an electret style antenna. So, thank you, everybody. Figured I'd demonstrate those points, explain the concepts, talk about how much ground we're breaking in the research, And yeah, thank you everybody.